Hi, my name is Frank. Welcome to Vinyl DENS on channel 33 RPM. This is the segment where we check out cool music rooms from across the vinyl community and around the world. This first one comes from Brandon in St. Louis, Missouri, USA. Brandon goes under the name Mr. Hall of Fame on YouTube. He's been doing vinyl community videos for, I don't know how long, a decade or more. I've been watching him for years. Always love his stuff, and Brandon has an excellent taste in music. A very diverse taste in music. And check out his music room. It's not a music room, his entire basement is dedicated to music. This may be I'm gonna say it, this may be one of the best music rooms in the YouTube vinyl community. Let's dive into it.
Channel 33 RPM.
Brandon writes, I've been collecting for about 16 years. He says he has 4,000 LPs, 1,200 CDs, 1,100 cassettes, and 500 45s. He says, I'm into every style of music you can think of with the exception of house/techno. He says, I have the entire basement for my musical pleasure, so that gives me one huge room and a huge bedroom that I use as an office as well as my own bathroom down here. I love the environment of my room and change things around all the time. I love moving shelves around, moving one genre from one area to another, rotating my posters around, etc. In general, my inspiration is to live in something that feels like one of my favorite record stores. He says, I really like separating my collection into very specific genres and subgenres. For instance, 80s pop rock is separated into 80s pop/rock, 80s ladies pop rock, 80s alternative, 80s new wave, 80s guitar rock, etc. He also says, I like to use a lot of tabs in my collection. No simple A to Z for me, LOL. An individual artist never gets their own tab until I have at least 5 of their albums. I was going to ask, that is sort of the predicament, right? Like if you start making individual tabs, I mean, he's referring to like dividers. He talks about tabs, dividers. And I mean, at what point does an artist get their individual divider, right? So that's his line in the sand. He has to have 5 of their albums. He writes, the box sets you see on the floor in front of the fireplace that I never turn on are all homemade box sets. Now this is cool. Check this out. I find all these old beat up LP carrying cases and paint them, design them, and make my own box sets. That is amazing, Brownie. Such a good job, man. I love the fact you're dedicating all this time to making these really killer box sets. Now check this. I was talking about his wow wall. It says my wow wall/shelves. I rotate the LPs there all the time. I usually pick a theme of some sort and rotate new albums up every couple of weeks. The theme in this picture was mid-grails. I love the thought, right? Like that's so specific, mid-grails. And he defines that as albums that didn't cost a fortune, between $50 and $125, but are albums that are not easy to find in excellent plus to near mint condition. Now this is the other thing about Brandon that I've learned from watching his channel for all these years, is that his collection is in immaculate condition. As it says here, excellent to near mint. He just finds the best stuff, and you have to respect that. What else does he write? He also says, my bathroom is Kiss themed with posters, action figures on the wall, Kiss trash can, red and black towels, and of course an awesome Kiss Destroyer shower curtain. As a longtime Kiss fan, man, I can totally appreciate that. He also has 2 separate stereo systems. I won't go into all those details, otherwise this video will be 20 minutes long, but it's fair to say that both systems are beyond capable. A couple things I just want to focus in on here. Okay, the posters on the wall, like look at the variety. Look how broad-based Brandon's musical taste is. I mean, he's got Bowie there. He's got, I think that's Joan Jett, Boy George. He's got a Rolling Stones, Iron Maiden, and he's got what looks like an old Judas Priest promo poster for British Steel. It's Chuck Berry there, of course. And the CD wall, look at all of those compact discs. I mean, to say his goal was to recreate a music store feel in his basement. I mean, he's succeeded. And I just love this long view of the room where you can really appreciate it. Again, if this was a record store, I'd be blown away, but it's that much more impressive that it's actually someone's room. And of course, I have to comment on the Van Halen wall, the Eddie Van Halen stripes there in the back wall. That is just a beautiful, beautiful added touch. And of course, I'm saying that completely biased as a huge Van Halen fan. But man, Brandon, thank you for sending these over. I love the room. Cheers, man.
Love vinyl? Tell the world with a Channel 33 RPM t-shirt. Check out the Channel 33 RPM store today.
Check this one out. This is from Freddie, and he writes, "My name is Freddie. I am 61 years old, and I live in Newcastle in the French-speaking part of Switzerland." That's the cool thing about doing these videos and having the reach of YouTube, is that we are able to see music rooms from across the world, literally, and there's people from all over watching these videos. I love it. Freddie wrote, "I grew up with the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Cream, The Who, Genesis, and Pink Floyd. Later, I learned to love classical music, jazz, and jazz rock with Return to Forever, Weather Report, and so many others." He writes, "So my collection started 45 years ago with the Beatles 45. And then now look where we are. That 45, he said, was All You Need Is Love, and now he says I have about 300 LPs, 1,000 CDs, and 100 audio cassettes. I dig this room." He said in his email to me that he has a small apartment, a small space, and that he's really made the best use out of it. And you can obviously see that in these pictures. And I know he has spent a lot of time with placement and everything, just making sure everything sounds right to his ears. And there's so much I could talk about here, but I'm going to focus on the turntables. So Freddie writes, "The main turntable is my Swiss Thorens TD-145 with a Stanton Triple E cartridge." He says he bought it in 1976 and it still works perfectly to this day. And that's great, right? That just speaks to the fact that if you buy quality equipment from day one, you're going to have that for decades. Now, next to the Thorens, he has a 1977 Technics, or Techniques, depending on where in the world you live. I don't want to get into that debate in this video, but he has a 1977 Techniques Sl J2 Turntable. Now, if you've never heard of this turntable, it's super cool. I pulled it up on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia says it was produced from 1985 to 1988. Freddie says it's 1977. I mean, it doesn't matter what year it was, and I don't know what year it was. I'll go with what Freddie said, 77. But what matters is how cool and innovative this deck was. Check this out. The Sl J2 was a linear tracking turntable, had a linear tracking tone arm, and also came with an optical sensor that allowed for the kind of track skipping more typical of CD players. So you can actually, on these turntables, the way I understand it, you can actually push a button and just skip over to the next track. So how amazing is that? How cool of a technology is that for turntables? And equally impressive is the fact that the technology continues to work all these decades later. The sensor also detects the size of the record sitting on the platter, whether it's a 7, 10, or 12 inch, and it allows the needle to drop precisely on the first track. So Freddie, I dig the space, I dig your living space, I dig the music, and I dig the setup. I really appreciate you saying this to me, man. Love it. Cheers. All right, this next one comes from Jason Mall. And Jason lives in Kansas, USA, and he says he currently has 351 vinyl albums. He's been collecting for a little over 2 years, so he's a relatively new collector. Welcome to the world of vinyl, Jason. I love the fact that people continue to get into this hobby / lifestyle / passion, whatever you want to call it. He says he has a Fluence RT85 turntable, super popular in the vinyl community. He's got that hooked up to a pair of Klipsch the Sixes speakers. So they're called the Sixes, and those are powered speakers. They're pretty good from what I understand. They're not cheap. They sell for in the range of around $500. Now check this out. He says, "My space is in my basement with all my stuff. pool table, dartboard, golden tea machine, digital pinball machine, and a Nintendo Wii hooked up to the TV behind the bar. He writes, I work for the railroad, so I'm gone most of the time, but when I'm home, I'm down in the basement listening to all my records while playing pinball, pool, darts, or golden tea. We have friends over on occasion, and when we do, I'm spinning my favorite records into the wee hours of the morning. I would rather hang out in the basement like this than go to a bar or a lounge or something like this. I mean, you literally have everything you need here. The setup is perfect, and it really does resemble a cool bar. So I know you say you're not home a lot when you're away. It must be hard to be away from this great setup. It's very cool you have such an awesome place to come home to. Thank you for sharing the photos, man. All right, check this out. This comes from Rob, and he is another YouTuber. He's part of the YouTube vinyl community. His channel is called Northern Revolutions, and again, I'll leave a link to that below this video. He lives in Southern Ontario here in Canada, just west of Toronto, and he writes, my room is also my home office in my basement. It's about 250 square feet and was completely unfinished when we bought the house 6 years ago. He says, I've been collecting records ever since I got into music as a teenager in the mid-90s. My collection isn't huge, only about 700 albums, but I like to think of it as quality over quantity. And that's kind of funny, only 700 records. I totally get where you're coming from because, of course, in the vinyl community, there are some huge collections, but by most standards, 700 records is a very large collection. And it's awesome that you've gone for the quality aspect, because I don't know about you, but there's no point in having 4,000 records if half of them are in crappy condition, right? Or if you don't listen to half of them. I mean, at least speaking for myself, it's all about having records in good condition and having records that you actually listen to. Rob writes, I'm a huge Beatles fan and have a ton of classic rock. Also, I'm a big fan of Canadian indie music, which I talk about regularly on my YouTube channel. My stereo is by no means high-end, but for my ears, it sounds just fine. He says he's got a Yamaha amplifier, CD player tuner, and network media streamer with a Sony PS11 direct drive turntable and Techniques floor standing speakers. So the PS11, that's a pretty cool turntable. I believe it's from the late 1970s. Got aluminum platter, and it is a fine turntable. I mean, I love the stereo gear from the late 70s. To me, that's the golden age of hi-fi, and there's just so much great stuff from that era. Rob also writes, as you can see, I have a lot of guitars on my wall. I like to think of myself as the world's most average, shitty guitar player, but I have fun. About half my guitars I've built myself. Man, that is an impressive guitar collection. You know, I probably have 4, 5, 6 electrics myself, but I only have one on the wall right now because I have run out of room on the wall. So it's excellent they actually have the space and you can display your instruments, because in my experience, when you have your instruments out, you're more likely to grab them and play them as compared to if they were in a guitar case in a closet like mine often are. I just, out of sight, out of mind in many respects. I hate to say it, but in many ways it's true. So yeah, man, cool room. Glad to see your YouTube channel is doing well. And again, 33ers, there'll be there'll be a link below this video so you can check out Rob's channel as well. This next one is another Canadian. This is Pete Simone. I'm sorry, Pete, if I mispronounce that. And he is from Barrie, Ontario. And he writes, I want to submit my music room. It's in my small basement, so I've had to be pretty creative with shelving and space. I'm a video game collector as well as music. And I love this. I love the fact that he has a place for everything and everything in its place. That's what I try to do, right? That way, if I'm looking for something, I know exactly where it's going to be. So I like to be organized in that way as well. He says his game collection consists of 9 consoles and about 500 games. My gosh. Video game collectors, you guys are as sick as us record collectors. He talks about a stereo system, says it includes a U-turn orbit custom turntable, a Marantz PM8005 stereo receiver. Those Marantz amps, man, super good. I love them. And he's also got a pair, check this out, he's also got a pair of Serwin Vega 211 speakers from about 1973. He also writes the smaller speakers on the cabinet under the TV are only used for TV and video games. But I want to go back to those Cerwin Vegas. I don't know why. I have problems with that name, Cerwin Vegas. He says they were being thrown out at a local e-waste facility, and I took them home for free, refoamed the drivers, rebuilt the crossovers, replaced the cloth, and refinished the cabinets, and they sound fantastic. They look fantastic too, man. He says he also made the stands that they are on. He continues to write, building this space has been an absolute pleasure to do. I handmade every piece of furniture or cabinetry you see in the pictures, with the exception of the couch. As I said, you got it super well organized. All your passions are there. You got the music and the video games. Looks like a very cool place to hang out. All right, this next one, we're going across the ocean. This is Kyle, and he is a 20-year-old bartender living in York, England. And he writes, I've been collecting records for about 5 years now, and can you believe it? I started off on an all-in-one turntable, like a record player, whatever. So this is the whole thing, right? And I have talked about these all-in-ones many, many times, the Crossleys and whatnot. And I've long said, this is a way to start out, to dip your toe into the water and to see if this hobby is for you. I know a lot of people just get so mad at any mention of these all-in-ones, but I have no problem with it. And here we go. Here's an example of someone who started off simple and loved it so much, he upgraded over time, over 5 years, and now has a kick-ass setup. Let's check this out. Kyle says, I've upgraded my setup piece by piece over the years, and I've finally hit a point where I'm almost totally satisfied with it. He says he has a Marantz 6150 turntable. Now this is a direct drive turntable, and I believe, again, it's from the late 70s, the golden age of hi-fi. He says he has an Edwards Audio Apprentice preamp, a Marantz black panel receiver, a Marantz black panel tape deck, a Cambridge Audio CD player, and a Pioneer reel-to-reel. Man, you've built up quite the collection of gear, Kyle, in a short period of time. That's very cool. He says all of these are being blasted through the compact but amazing Q Acoustics 3010 speakers. If you're not familiar with these speakers, these are very small bookshelf speakers with little 4-inch drivers, but for everything I've read about them, they perform well, they're well reviewed, and they sell for about $500 Canadian. He also writes, I also play bass and shoot vintage analog cameras as well as digital cameras. I absolutely love where my setup is right now and cannot see myself changing anything in the near future. And as you shouldn't, man, this is great. And he writes, unless, of course, someone dumps some Macintosh gear outside. Of course. Thank you very much, Kyle, for sending these. Love the setup. All right, 33ers, if you want to learn how to submit your music room for consideration in a future episode of Vinyl Dens, there's a whole description below this video. Check it out. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of these vids in the comments below. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks to you to everyone also who sent in pictures. All these rooms are amazing. Thanks again, 33ers. Until next time, keep on spinning.